Welcome, welcome, welcome. We will be talking about which learner are you? When you go out into this world, you perspect and perceive different information as you interact into this world. You look at a flower and you recognize its shape, its form, its color, its senses. You smell it and you interact with that information. But how exactly are you conveying, integrating, absorbing the information from the flower into you as a being? Is it simply one-to-one? I see the flower and I connect to it? Do I look at the flower and information from a far distant land comes into my mind? What is it? Either way, those kind of questions are very contemplational. We really want to understand how we understand information. But this is a truth. Not everyone who sees the flower will receive the same information. If you have 5 people who look at a rose, someone will notice how red it is. Someone will notice how it smells. Someone will notice the thorns upon the green of the stem. Different people recognize different things. And then a week later, you may ask these people, okay, so what can you tell me about the flower? What can you tell me about the rose? They will say, oh, well, I noticed it was really thorny. It almost cut me. Or I would notice how red it was. And some people may not recognize any information of the rose or the flower. They may say, I'm not too sure. I don't remember it that well. Why? Why can some people integrate information in different ways? Some people can draw the flower, but cannot understand or remember how it smells. Everyone integrates information differently based upon their own senses. So the question is, if we can see, hear, taste, if we have all the same senses as a human being, why do some people understand things differently? We all have different processors of the mind. Our brain is a mechanism, is the physical organism that assists us with interacting with information, collecting memories, and coming to outcomes and possibilities and different understandings of the information. But the mind is where the information is formed. What the culmination of all that information becomes, the evolution, the sentience, the ultimate totality of that information, that is the mind, okay? And everyone understands information differently through the brain and ultimately through the mind, okay? This is what we call learners. There are different learners in the world. That doesn't mean that if you're a Pacific learner, you can't understand the other ways. That just simply means one way is more natural to you. The different learners is you could be a mental learner where you understand information that resonates with you so well. Or you can be an emotional learner where sensations, emotions, anger, those kind of interactions, sadness, happy, those you really connect to and understand the world. Then you have physical learners. Physical learners, they're more tapped into the physical interaction. They have to run, they have to work out, they have to have these physical interactions because that's how they understand the nature of the universe and the nature of their world. We all are either those 3. Now, I'm not going to dive too much into this, but there are also spiritual learners. There are people who understand the spiritual nature and move through the world with a spiritual understanding. But for this video specifically, I'm going to talk about only mental, emotional, and physical learners. Now understand, you can have a person who is a dominant physical learner, but also is very well versed in the emotional spectrum and in the mental spectrum. It just will never be as well as the physical learners. We humans are born with certain information operating systems. Some people are more natural emotional learners. Some people are more natural mental learners. But we all have an interaction of all 3. Every human being has to interact emotionally, has to interact physically, and has to interact mentally. We are intermixed in the mental, emotional, and physical world. We need all 3. But there are some who are an emotional learner. They understand the world through sadness, through crying, through happiness, through joy, through the interaction and social dynamic of, getting the emotion from someone else, falling in love, heartbreak, going through those, dealing with their own interpersonal emotions. That's how they really understand and interrelate the physical and the mental. Some people, like myself, is a mental learner. We understand the world, we understand emotions and physicality, but mentality, information, reading a book, pondering, thinking, and coming up with outcomes not yet seen is what a mental learner dwells upon. It's their passion. And then you have physical learners, athletes, people who play basketball, people who really love fighting. They understand the emotional and mental game, the emotional and mental spectrum through their physicality, through their fighting, through their interface, through their running, through their workouts, through their physical experience of the world. So the question is this: once you understand which learner you are, if you know you're a mental learner, you can take steps to cultivate that mentality. And if you want to tap more into the physical or emotional spectrum, you can. You could say, I know I'm a more mental learner, so I'm going to understand through books, through discussion, this world. And then I'm going to take that information and apply it to myself. To be a healthy human being, if you're a mental learner, you need to know how to deal with your emotions. You need to know how to deal with your body, because ultimately your emotions, your physicality, and your mentality is all part of the human experience. You need to understand all three and how they're interrelated, but you need to understand what's more natural to you, and ultimately at some point become in balance with all three. When you become in balance, that does not mean that because you're a mental learner, you can't be in balance with your emotions or your physicality. No, it simply means you have reached a level to where you're in balance. You could be a high mental learner, but you could be level 10 mental learner, but all you need to be in alignment with your mentality and physicality is get your physicality to a 7, and then get your emotions to a 5. It's not alignment in they're all the same level. It's alignment in they're all at the level it needs for your soul, for your being, for your totality to express itself, to tap into its highest form, or to evolve and ascend to the next level. It's generally, what is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish? You need to understand yourself, who you are, your destiny, and then ultimately you'll be able to understand that through understanding what kind of learner are you. If you're a mental learner, you know you're going to be a writer. You know you're going to be something to do with information. If you're an emotional learner, you know you're going to do with social dynamics. You know you're going to be community related. You know you're going to want to have a family. You're going to want to have friends. And if you're a physical learner, you know you're going to get into the work field doing something with your hands, building, constructing something. This is why understanding what learner you are and which way you can understand information appropriately only benefits you. If you are a physical learner, but you believe a narrative that you need to tap into your emotions and ignore your physicality over your emotions, no, you learn emotions through your physicality. You understand your mentality through your physicality. So you need to understand what your basic natural aspect is. Physical, emotional, or mental. Now, yes, it could go, some people are mental, emotional, physical. Some people are physical, emotional, mental. It's all different spectrums. But no matter how much of a variable it is, you need to know which dominant one you are. Because if not, you're going to go through the world and not be able to accurately understand it and integrate the information that best reflects you, because you're so caught up into trying to understand the world in a way that doesn't fit for you, in a way that you're trying to force a puzzle piece. Understand which processor is you. Understand who are you in this world, how does information relate to you, and how you should be operating. Know your operating system, because the better you understand it, the more you can go through this world making better decisions for your own prosperity, destiny, and glory, and connection to the divine. Welcome
We will talk about being a mental learner. Are you a person who gravitates and allures to books, to truth, to understandings? Can you not accept the fact that you are ignorant of certain circumstances? What does that mean? When you don't understand a subject, you dive deep into it. You try to understand as much as you can about that, certainty, about that subject, about that problem. You see a problem, you want to understand not only the solution, but the problem itself. 1 plus 1 equals 2. What's 1? What's plus? And why must it equal something? These are questions a mental learner ponders upon. For a mental learner naturally lives within his mind, naturally states what he needs to understand. And so knowledge is so important, super important for a mental learner. You understand the world through information, through data, through analysis and calculations. This is how it's understood. Yes, a mental learner can understand emotions and physicality, but it must dwell within his mind first. A person who's a mental learner will work out when it makes sense to him, will eat healthy when it makes sense to him, when he has a firm ground of understanding. A mental learner will look at emotions, look at behaviors, and try to come to some conclusion, some representation in the mind of how they should interrelate to them. But they first need a mental collection of data and knowledge of physicality, of emotions, so they can create a blueprint in their mind, a catalog of how they should approach these subjects, these topics, and these data. If you're a mental learner, it's very important that you realize this sooner than later. And the reason why, the sooner you understand you're a mental learner, then you can tap into the knowledge. Then you can start analyzing and focusing on decisions that can only assist you. And when you are ignorant of your natural capabilities of being a mental intuitive learner, you are forsaking yourself, not in terms of you'll never succeed if you don't figure out it's early, but in terms that the quicker you realize it, the quicker you can start using your ability, using your natural gift to understand topics and subjects to a higher degree, and then you can make better decisions and integrate better knowledge into your mind and execute them into your life. So you must understand, as a mental learner, you must take care of your body. For your brain, the physical mechanic of how it processes information for yourself, and the totality of that becomes your mind. You need to take care of your mind, your brain, your body. So that's physicality. And since we are human in the human experience, you have to also use it to understand your own emotions. So when you're a mental learner, you understand the world through knowledge, through wisdom, through truth. All beings can do this. All beings understand the world through knowledge. They have to. The world is a culmination of information. But those who are more natural to it, they are closer to knowledge. They feel an intuitiveness with calculations, probability. This is why people who are scientists, people who are ponderers, thinkers, planners, they are existing in their mind before they exist physicality. They exist in the mind. They exist within the data. And then they use that information and understanding to have that human experience. So mental learners, I'm a mental learner. That's why I ponder and think and come up with these ideas. But there's many mental learners. And the sooner you understand it, the sooner you gain truth of your ability and truth of how you connect to information, you can use that ability to understand wisdom, how to make better decisions, how to navigate out of roads and routes in your life that can take you to negative consequences. You'll be able to reflect not only on your journey, but learn from the journey of others. Emotional learners. Emotional learners are those who move through life with their hearts on their sleeve, which is just a metaphor to say when they feel something, they truly operate like that. If they feel upset, they're going to operate like that. If they feel good and glad, they're going to operate like that. There are many who have a stoic belief system, which means that even though they understand their emotions, even though they feel happiness or feel sadness, they ignore those feelings and they still move forward with their mental intention. If they have to if a stoic person wakes up and they have to go to work, but they don't feel like going to work, they're still going to do it. There's many mental learners that do the same thing, but they feel so terrible from doing it. A mental learner has a natural alert to the feelings and the generation of those emotions through the interaction of their life and experience and information, and they truly feel connected to it to the point where they identify themselves with the emotions. Those emotions are you. You must accept that. When you feel anger, that is your anger. That is not anger from a far distant land passing through you. That's your anger. The difference is when you're a mental learner, you can identify, you can say, yes, that's my anger, but I choose not to identify with it, or I don't choose to operate in it right now. When you're a physical learner, you may actually use that anger to assist with your physicality. But when you're an emotional learner, when that's your natural step to be an emotional learner, you identify. It makes you hate whatever's going on or the reality itself. It puts you in such a form reflective of that emotion and information towards that emotion. They're very natural to it. That's why when you speak to someone who is obviously operating in their emotions, obviously understand the word in their emotions, and they choose to identify it with it passionately, you must be careful with how you speak to these people. And it's not a bad or good thing, it's just a cautious thing because they can be triggered. They can be upset, and it's not their fault or your fault. They don't understand how to deal with their emotions appropriately and manifest them and express them in a way that can essentially, interact well with others. That's the issue. But it's not their fault. They simply are ignorant of it. They don't understand how to deal with their own emotions. So someone can be talking to this person and their emotions are flaring up, and you look at them like you have no control over yourself. Well, they can't have control over something they don't understand. And because the emotional learner is very, very, very naturally close to their emotions, and because they've been living like that through their lives, they identify with it. They feel angry, they truly feel angry. They're not going to reflect and say, why am I angry? Should I be angry? Because mental processing and rationalization don't necessarily generally make their emotions any better. You can tell someone they shouldn't be mad and give them great reasons as to why they should not be mad, but ultimately they still will feel mad. They may accept it, but they're still going to feel mad. And an emotional learner, they're just going to reflect themselves through their emotions. So you have to be careful when you're an emotional learner. You have to be careful going out into the world. You have to try to be mindful of your energy. Try to be mindful of your emotions. Your emotions are you if you identify with them. It's a choice. When you feel angry, yes, you feel angry. You're already there. There's nothing you can do about that. But three important things. One, your emotions are constantly changing. They're fluid. You could be angry, but you yourself can change your emotions to be grateful, to be glad. You have to constantly understand how to transmit your emotions. Number two, be careful with the experiences you put yourself in. If you know you're a person that can't take the extreme of the emotional side, then be careful with who you allow into your life. Be careful of the people you love, because loving someone, you can easily hate that person. So you have to be careful in the experiences you put yourself in, because the emotion that generates from that experience could be too much for you to handle. And number three, You have to use your emotions for your own power. You have to learn how to use your own emotions to assist you in life. Being an emotional learner is a lot of responsibility, but you are tapped into a lot of infinite power. Physical learner. Physical learners are people who gravitate towards physicality. They want to go experience life rather than reading about it in the book. They don't want to sit and play games all day. They want to go be social and interact with the world. They want to get hurt. They want to feel stronger. They want to work out. They're connected closer with information that is a direct experience. Now, don't confuse this. Many people may confuse physical learners with emotional learners and say, oh, well, I feel like I'm an emotional learner and I love to go and experience life. Well, yes, your emotional and physicality is interconnected. Why? Well, an emotional learner could be someone who isn't physical at all. They could be someone who loves watching movies, having stimulating conversations, and having that emotion generate. For physical learners, it's not like that. They cannot just do nothing and sit down. They can't. They only understand the world through direct experience. You can sit and explain something to them, but they must have that direct experience. They must fall and get back up to fall again. They need that. Not necessarily that they're fools, because many people will judge physical learners and say they're foolish or not as intelligent. It's not really about that. It's more about that's just how their processing system works. You have great gifted athletes, great gifted anomalies, great gifted people who have went over the expectations of physicality that no one thought was possible. But they're not going to know physics. They're not going to know. Some won't have great wisdom. Now that doesn't mean that they all are like this. You may have a physical learner or a great champion who understands emotions, who's very intelligent. But I'm not talking about someone like that. I'm just talking about specifically if someone who is more natural to the physicality of life, they need direct experience. They need to experience life directly. They cannot simply watch it from afar, and they need to be able to go and ask that girl on a date, or go and work out and see how much they can push themselves, or get into boxing, fighting, or get into fights just to prove themselves. Those are physical learners. So if you are a physical learner, simply, just go through life knowing that you need a physical experience. If you are studying a subject in school, let's just say you're studying biology, right? And you're reading about biology, you're reading about blood flow and stuff like that. That's your mind. The information is interacting with your mind, and yes, you can understand it, but you need a direct experience. If you go out to a museum and see it and able to touch it, you will be able to understand it at a different level. And if it's closer to your physical direct experience, you're going to hold that information closer to you. It's going to connect and resonate with you more. If you're reading about animals and about lions, about gorillas, apes, and stuff like that, go to a zoo. Go experience those animals directly, to see them, to smell them. Physical learners need that direct experience, or they won't retain that information as well. We live in a world where if someone can't understand in class, they got ADHD, they can't pay attention, etc., etc. No, school is for to teach people generally, and not understand their specific way to learn. A physical learner cannot just sit in class and hear a teacher speak for hours on end. It's dreadful for them. It's terrible. They don't want to hear that. When you are a physical learner, you need to go use that information. You need to take the information, and that's all well and dandy, but you need to go and use it, to use it for your physical experience. You know, someone who's a physical learner don't want to learn about how to make money. They want to go and make money and understand through the process itself. You know, so when you understand you're a physical learner, just know you need to go have that physical experience. You need to have direct experiences, and then that is how you will evolve and understand information to a greater degree. The interconnectedness of it all. Know that there are infinite numbers of ways people learn. Some people are 40% mental learner, 39% emotional learner, and then 21% physical learner. You know, it's not so easy. We live on a very scale, and it could be infinite amount of possibilities of what kind of learners you are, but it will be one that you're more natural to. If you're not more natural than anyone and you're the same level, you're a level 5 physical learner, a level 5 emotional learner, and a level 5 mental learner, those are very rare to excel at all the spectrums for information processing. But if you are, you have no issue, and you would easily find that out just by going through life. But someone who doesn't understand which one he is needs to understand if he's a mental learner, an emotional learner, or a physical learner. And the reason why is because they are all intercorrelated, interrelated, interconnected. You cannot be a mental learner without in using that information and through the interaction of understanding things, not generate emotions. You may understand something that makes you extremely sad or depressed, or something that makes you hopeful and glad and grateful. And that information will generate emotions that may want you to go and experience life. You may read about love. You may watch a movie about love. And you may feel you want love, and now you have to go and use that knowledge and use those emotions to go find the love of your life. So they're interconnected. You know, another example, if you're a physical learner, you will generate emotions. There's nothing you can do as a human being. You will generate emotions. And when those emotions are generated, you know, you're going to have to mentally figure out, how do I express them? How do I get what I want? If you're being a physical learner, and you're trying to be a champion of a sport, of wrestling, of fighting, of football, you need to be able to say, okay, I want to be a great player. And you feel that energy, you feel those emotions of you want to be great, but now you have to figure out how. They're all interconnected. Physicality, emotional, and mentality is connected. It's just whatever you're more natural to will show you the pathway of how to intercorrelate all three. If you're a dominant emotional learner, you know your emotions are very powerful for you. So you're going to navigate your experiences as to where you do not engage in experiences that give you great turmoil, that gives you great depression. You probably won't watch scary movies. You probably don't want to have really hateful conversations, because that generates emotions that you don't necessarily like. Some people on the other side of the spectrum may actually like that. They may say, oh, I want to have those conversations. I like those really intense, dark emotions, right? But, you know, either way, you need to understand which dominant learner are you. And if you're a mental learner, you know direct experience is important, but you need to understand. You know emotions are important because you're going to go through them, you're going to use them, and everyone you interact with also has them. So it's very reflective to understand emotions, because then you understand yourself and you have empathy for others. So they're all interrelated, intercorrelated. It's just when you find your dominant one, it would help you navigate to understand the other two better. Because everyone will, depending on your main dominant processing aspect, you will use that to understand the other two. This is how they're interconnected and intercorrelated, and you have to understand that. When you understand these things, You'll be able to navigate yourself better in the world. You'll be able to interact with information on a more conscious and deliberate level. And you know, the reason why these things are super important, especially if you see a child and he's so fixated on physicality, so fixated on the direct experience, you can start helping him and guide him through his natural order in life. But you may have another child who wants to read, who wants books and knowledge, and we start to see the interrelated of the dominant aspect of their processing system. We must understand this.
Accept your position. If you're a mental learner, it will take time. It will take time for you to understand and raise your capabilities. And you need to raise your mental level so you can be at your highest form. But if you choose to believe in some ideology, some knowledge that says you need to focus on your emotions more, you will raise your emotions and you will understand emotions to a higher degree, but it will not be to the level of quality if you would just raise your mentality and emotions. So it's not one or the other, they're all interconnected, but you must understand your dominant one, and that dominant one will help you understand and correlate the other two. Emotionals will understand the physicality and mental through their emotions. The mental will understand their emotional experience and physical experience through the mental understanding. And physical learners will understand the emotions and mentality through the physical direct experience. You need to just accept it, because once you accept it, you're being authentic. You're understanding the world and the processing of how God gave you, of your most natural ability, and this will create possibilities, circumstances, and outcomes that are directly related for you. So you must understand who you are, know thyself, and accept the truth. Because that ability, those abilities, those truths in yourself will assist you with creating the best world for you. You will shift and create and manifest a reality that is reflective in your authenticness, that is reflective in your understanding, in your truth. But if you don't operate in your true self, you operate in a lower quality or your false self. If you are a mental learner and you ignore our mentality, you keep your mind at level 1, and you raise your emotions to level 5, your physicality to level 8, you will be a form of yourself. But you're not your highest form. You cannot be, because your most dominant trait, the ability that God gave you to understand the world, your processing system at the most dominant level is such a low level. So you're not reflecting on what you could be. Your potential is hidden because you're focusing on other things that's not reflective in your most authentic self. So you need to really reflect and understand, who am I? Which one am I? And you may not know this. This may be new to someone. So you need to test yourself. You need to reflect. Do I want to read? Do I want to feel, or do I want to go experience? They're different things. They all can happen through one experience. I could be reading a book and get really emotional and then get inspired to go take action. But my mentality and the quality of me understanding it was so clear and was so high that physical and emotional expressions I received was at an adequate level of excellence based on the quality of mental knowledge that I just received and interacted and integrated. And that can only be possible because I'm operating at my most authentic self and understand myself. Everyone needs to do this. I get it. Many people may want to be stoic. Many people have these ideologies to say, I'm just going to be a mental, rational person, ignore my emotions, and take action. Well, unfortunately, when you do this, you are operating at a lower self. If you choose to block, to ignore, to consciously destroy any of these aspects in any relation, aside from accepting them and learning how to use them in their totality, you are being a lower version of yourself, even if it works. But we must understand, Just because it's physically working doesn't necessarily mean that you're at the level you need to be. There is a higher dimension and a higher realm at work. And what I'm simply saying is that to be your most authentic self, to tap into your potential, you need to identify which learner you are so you can understand and accept your position and move forward and navigate to become your highest form. And you need to understand your most dominant aspect of learning for this to even be possible at the highest level. In closing, we must understand who we are. We must know ourselves at a greater potentially, at a greater level than what's currently being expressed. We see people on the street. We see people confused. Where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? I don't know. I have no talent. For someone to truly believe that they are talentless, no, every human being has integrated information of their greatness, of their potential within them, if they can only understand and go through the world realizing that true potential. You cannot, you cannot get to your greatest form being ignorant of yourself. You must accept yourself in the totality of who you are. Understand that all information, good or bad, can be used for your greater success. And not all information, thoughts, and perspectives you have, you need to act upon them. You have free will. Your free will is the ability to make choices that are in a world where choices are infinite and eternal. Going left and going right are both solid decisions, pathways, and possibilities I can act upon. But I simply choose to do neither. They're still both real and endless and eternal. And they're infinite in terms of there's so many left, right, left, 0.1 inch degrees. There's so many different variables of me going left, right, up, down, sideways. It's all infinite and eternal, and you have so many possibilities. You can't simply choose one, but I'll tell you one. Right when you choose it, it becomes real. If I go left, the vibration, the quantum probabilistic mechanical nature collapses, and that's the now. That's the moment of now. I'm there. So we must understand, you need to know yourself. You need to know if you're a mental learner, so you can start reading books, so you can start pondering, so you can start going on walks and thinking about your life. Because once you think about your life, once you think about your emotions and your physicality and what actions you can do, you can start tapping into your most authentic self, tapping into your true self. But if you're a physical learner and your parents, your friends are so scared about the world, so scared that something can happen to you, so they don't allow you to have that direct experience, and you're just stuck in the house all day reading books or playing games, you won't feel fulfilled. You will feel like a black hole. You would not be tapping into your most authentic, excellent self. You need direct experience if you're a physical learner. So you need to understand it. And emotional learners are something now in modern day society that's coming back. Emotional learners, those beings who really understand their emotions, really tap into them and really believe them and allow them to, those emotions to guide them through life. Majority of life, we really didn't have that. We really didn't have a possibility, a pathway for those people. Modern day age, especially in the West, those pathways are now existing. The issue is that now that they're accepting to live life based on their emotions, they don't understand how to transmute them, which is change them from sadness to happiness, from happiness sometimes to grief, because those are all needed, and they don't know how to express them in a way. That's why you say triggered, I've been triggered and I need safe space. That's essentially saying you triggered me. Whatever you said generated emotions in me that are making me upset, and I cannot necessarily a function right now, and I need to be able to collect myself. That means they don't understand how to appropriately use their emotions, which is simply just energy. We need to understand that in this world, staying ignorant of your true potential, of your true capabilities, of your true self is how they win. There is a spiritual force, a spiritual nature in this world that wants you ignorant, that wants you not to know about yourself, that urges you to accept the human foundations of truth. They want you to accept that science knows everything, because if science says so, then it's not applicable to you. Science says my emotions aren't that important. Huh? No. On an individual level, your physicality, your emotions, your mentality are uniquely designed for you, and no one in any book, no category, no one can truly tell you how you feel and how you're interacting with it. You must understand yourself. You cannot read yourself in the book. You know, you can read about a test, about probabilistic, about percentages, but you more than likely was not in that percentages. And even if you were, no one can tell you how you are doing in an internal perspective. They may be able to tell you if you're cut, if you're bruised, if you're physically hurt, but they cannot say anything about your mentality or your emotions. They will never truly know what's happening to you. Only you will know. But if you're ignorant of it, if you don't know, if you don't take time and effort to understand who you are, how you process information, how you understand the world, because no matter what you do, you will interact with information. You cannot escape it. When you go out in the world, when you look at a flower, when you talk to your friends, when you go to school, when you go to work, you are always interacting with information consistently, and there's nothing you can do about it. But if you understand how you interact with information, how you process the information, you can start taking steps to select the best information for yourself, the most superior information for yourself, and it's not all the same thing. I hear people say, oh, just do this, it worked for me. Information that is specifically suited for one individual and provides great results may not necessarily do well for somebody else. It really depends. I don't like to drink water. People tell me, oh, you need water. I accept I need water, and I accept and I drink water, and I take steps for water because mentally I understood through my physical experience that water is extremely important, but I have some sort of dislike towards it. So for me and how I function, how I'm my greatest self, I'm not a person that would be drinking water more than someone who needs it. Like a physical learner may need water because they're always, working out, muscles, etc., to rehydrate themselves. I'm not living life in that way. So my whole point is that it's all different. The information we use to understand and interact in the world is different than someone else. And we can't simply read a book. We can't simply put all our faith in another work, in science, and in someone's belief. You must cultivate your own. I always tell people, oh, you believe that. Did you put in the work to understand that for yourself? And what I'm really simply saying is that you have to create your own understandings in the world and then use that to reflect your own truth. But the only way to ever get to your own truth, to ever understand the world how you're supposed to, is to understand yourself. Understand what decisions are you supposed to be acting upon? Which thoughts are you supposed to ignore, and which thoughts are you supposed to express? Which information are you supposed to stay away from, and what information are you supposed to cultivate into your life? Understand not all virtues are for everybody. Not everyone will sin the same way. God doesn't expect all people to move left or move right. We live in variables. Humans are variables among variables of complications, of multi-interactions that breed different informational interactions and energies. And so what I'm simply saying is that You need to understand who you are. That is the whole purpose of making this video, saying which learner are you, because I was a mental learner. On a personal note, I'm a mental learner. I understand the world through knowledge and information and understanding, but I didn't know that. I struggled with that for a very long time because I want to go play with kids. I want to go, I didn't know, wanted to feel my emotions as a kid. You want to feel that joy, but I didn't understand that those things was simply not best suited for me at that time. I needed mental guidance and mental understanding, and that will lead me to my emotions and the physicality that's more related to my soul and authenticity, my authenticness.